that taught me something. And it was that you literally just have no idea what is going on in people's lives. Because I think people who would look at my Instagram profile over the last 2 years be like, wow, they might even be like, she's killing it. I want this kind of lifestyle. Meanwhile, I was like crumbling behind the scenes. And it's a potent reminder that in like the grocery store line, when somebody's frustrated or somebody's having a bad day in traffic or they're mean to a customer service person, whichever else, we don't know the battles that they're fighting.
Carleigh Bodrug, thank you so much for joining us on the show. We're so excited to have you.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
For those who don't know, Carleigh is a plant-based, scrappy cooking. I guess you started off as a blogger that turned into this ginormous social media presence. She has almost 5 million Instagram followers, over like 3 million TikTok followers. I think your YouTube, last time I checked, was like at almost 1 million YouTube subscribers. Just insane. You're a New York Times bestselling author, and you have a new cookbook coming out in April as well. Did I miss anything in my long-winded intro?
No, that was such a beautiful introduction. Thank you so much. I'm basically just all about people eating more plants.
I love it. And I was reading a little bit about your story because I've been following your blog and your recipes, but never really knew how you got into it. But I think people would love to hear what led you to really digging into this plant-based lifestyle.
For sure. So I grew up on a hobby farm in a very small town in Ontario, Canada, and ate what would best be described as the standard American or standard Canadian diet at the time. So every single meal in the day included some form of animal product, whether it was dairy or meat. And we were basically following the Canada Food Guide, or my parents were, where there was like it was like a pie chart, and it has since been updated, but it had like a pie chart for milk. It had a section for meat. And
I remember that.
Yeah. This was really what the government or Health Canada was recommending that people should be eating. And I was 11 years old. My dad was diagnosed with stage 2 colon cancer, and that sort of rocked our family's whole world. And he had surgery, chemotherapy, very kind of traumatic. And then we just continued eating the same diet. No one spoke to my dad about changing his diet at all. Meat continued on the plate every day. Well, also, my parents, such huge animal lovers. We had horses, chickens, dogs rotating in and out of the house. So there was kind of this like cognitive dissonance going on there. And then it wasn't until I had just graduated university in 2015, the World Health Organization came out with this breaking news that red and processed meat were now classed as group 2 and group 1 carcinogens. And I remember we turned on the documentary, I think it was Forks Over Knives or What the Health, and my dad being just visibly kind of angry or disturbed that no one had recommended he changed his diet, since there's such a link between diet and colon cancer specifically. So my family and I almost kind of overnight, more so me overnight, they transitioned slowly, but I transitioned to a plant-based lifestyle, but didn't know how to cook. I was actually working as a radio host, living on my own in a bachelor apartment up in Northern Ontario. And, I just had to teach myself from scratch how to cook like a vegetable, because I had only cooked like chicken, broccoli, and rice at the time, thinking that was the healthiest diet.
Gosh. Is it wild to you that now people like look to you as like this pillar of plant-based cooking and you don't even know how to cook a vegetable?
Yes, I think that there's been a lot of imposter syndrome along the way, because I really have no formal training in cooking. And I think what I've sort of thought about it like is that, okay, if I can do it, you guys can do it too. So anybody who comes to my page can see this girl who didn't know how to cook, who still is no expert, and is making plant-based eating fun. And what I always say about plant-based eating, and I remember there was this shift podcast, but there was when I went plant-based, and it was that the stakes are so much lower when you're cooking with plants. Like, you really can't screw it up. You can save it. Like, there's so many things that can go wrong when you're cooking with something like chicken, but if you're cooking with vegetables or tofu, oftentimes if you're making a soup, you can add more broth, you can add something sweet to save the meal, and you're not going to get sick. So that's the fun thing about plant-based cooking, is like all bets are off and it's going to be okay.
Yeah, you can be way more flexible.
Exactly.
Well, and I think that's what, though, attracted people to your page in general. I mean, I could be way off, but it seemed like such approachable recipes. Like, you weren't adding like gochujang to everything and like random ingredients that like people don't really have a lot of the time. Like, these were very simple and yet like delicious and good for you meals.
Yeah, I think a lot of people like to overcomplicate plant-based cooking, and there's this myth that it can be very expensive. I mean, grocery shopping in general these days, I'm not going to lie, it's expensive. But if you strip things down and really make whole food plant-based meals based on things like beans, rice, whole grain pastas, vegetables, it really can be simple, delicious, easy, and more affordable than at least a omnivore diet.
Yeah. And to clarify for people, because I am going to act like I knew exactly the difference between plant-based and vegan, and I did not. And the difference is, right, that like plant-based, you don't eat any packaged foods, right? Or like it's supposed to be like all whole foods.
Yeah, a plant-based diet really speaks to the diet aspect. And you will hear tons of different theories of what a plant-based diet is. To me, it simply means that the majority of your plate and your meals is made up of plants. That doesn't mean that you have to be entirely vegan, that you're never eating some cheese or a small piece of meat, but that your plate is made up of whole plant-based unpackaged foods. Just what you said. Veganism, which I also identify as a vegan, is more of a moral stance that you're not going to, you're trying to cause as little harm as possible with the food you're eating to our fellow animals. So this is avoiding all animal products, not from a health perspective, but just from a moral side of things. So I like to say that they're two completely different things. You can be both, or you could be vegan and still eat a ton of packaged food, which is fine too. I'm not here to judge anybody, but yeah, two different things.
Interesting. Okay. I think that's important to clarify because I think the words have been mixed up a lot in like food culture. And I think when you're neither of those things, which I'm not, I thought I understood them and I actually didn't. So thank you for the clarification. I would love to talk about then building your business, building PlantYou after you started this whole plant-based diet. I mean, like, did you ever anticipate that it would become what it is?
No, never. Not in my wildest dreams. And so it all kind of started. I went to school for broadcast journalism, and that was sort of what I had my eyes set on. I wanted to be like a news reporter, maybe like a foreign correspondent or something like that. And I graduated from school, moved up north, and that's when this whole news came out about the World Health Organization, red and processed meat, and I started going plant-based, and I felt so good. And I was like, why is no one talking about this? It's so delicious. It's easy. It's great for your health. It's great for longevity. It's great for cancer. And then I just naturally, since I already had this journalism background, wanted to tell people about it. So that's when I started just sharing on Instagram under the name PlantYou. And it slowly but surely gained a lot of traction. And I didn't really understand what was going on at first. And then I had moved back home. I was now working in marketing for a hospital foundation. And at that time, the account had grown to like 100,000 followers. And this was probably in around 2016, 2017. And that was a lot at that time. I was like blown away that many people would be interested in what I'm cooking up. And I thought, how can I do this full time? Because this is where I really felt drawn to it from a passion perspective. And so I ended up launching a meal plan subscription service. So this was an online subscription where I would send out PDF weekly meal ideas. They were just general meal ideas, nothing really like dietary focused. And I charged $7.99 USD per month. And I had a lot of people sign up, to the point where I was able to leave my full-time job and feel confident that I had the money coming in to be able to sustain myself doing what I was doing. I obviously came from a big position of privilege here. I was at the time living with my boyfriend, now husband, who really was like, if this goes south, I've got you. Really supportive family and parents. But I'm thankful it worked out for the best. And I think I left my job, and then a few months later, I was reached out to by a literary agent. And that's how the book was born. Wasn't really thinking about a cookbook at the time, but it kind of all happened in this really serendipitous way. And then the rest is history. It just sort of snowballed from there in this just incredible way. And at the end of the day, this is all because people chose to follow me and chose to support my work. And like, it's just, I feel so much gratitude for the PlantYou community.
What a beautiful story. I love that. Well, do you have a best piece of advice that you've ever gotten throughout maybe your professional career, maybe your personal life, that has just always stuck with you?
It's difficult navigating social media. And I think that I've had friends, I know you recently had Danielle, Healthy Girl Kitchen, on the podcast. Yeah. And her and I have become great friends over the years. And I remember years ago, it was like struggling, just feeling like my account wasn't growing or whatever. And she said, blinders on, focus on what you're doing. And it's so true that in a world where so many people are doing amazing things and it's right in your face, accessible through a social media platform, you really do have to put your blinders on and focus and get deep down in yourself of what you want and what you want to achieve. What does that look like? And I try to always go back to my mission is, okay, at the end of the day, Carleigh, you want people to eat more plants. So is this piece of content feeding that? And that's what I go back to. And I think it's just really important to dig down and find your why and not worry about what anyone else is doing.
I think that's wonderful advice. Are there certain moments in your career where you feel like you've used that more than others? Like, were there certain times where it was just really hard for you to ignore what was going on?
Absolutely. I remember when I first put out my cookbook 2 years ago, the imposter syndrome was just paralyzing. I thought, what the heck am I doing? I don't know how to cook. I'm about to put out this cookbook that thousands of people have pre-ordered, and they're all going to soon find out that I am the biggest fraud on the internet. And obviously it didn't turn out that way. People ended up liking the book, but I really had to zoom out. I remember I went to my, like, Chapters is the bookstore in Canada, kind of like your Barnes & Noble. And I was looking at cookbooks and thinking, oh my goodness, like, mine is just terrible compared to these amazing chefs and authors that are putting out books. So I had to really, in that moment, as Danielle would say, put your blinders on and remind myself who I wrote that book for. And it really was the me when I first went plant-based who needed really simple, practical meal ideas. And, if anyone's listening to this and you're endeavoring on something that you feel like is way out of your league, I promise you, you can do it. It's crazy what the humans are capable of when they put their mind to something. And people love the book, so it was all for naught. But that was a time I had to dig deep for sure and go to therapy.
Yeah, there we go. Major key. I love that, though, because I have felt so similar to that. I'm not a professionally trained graphic designer. I didn't go to school for graphic design. And I felt the same way when my book came out. I was like, I don't like that about it. I don't like this about it. Like, any real graphic designer would look at this and be like, this is such amateur work. And it's just so funny, no matter how good it probably was, no matter how good anything I make is, I just feel like there's always this little voice in your head telling you, like, well, there's so many other people who are so much better. But like, yet they're not doing what you're doing, like, yet you're the one with 5 million Instagram followers, which is so funny. But no matter how many followers you have, I feel like that voice is still going to stay there, and it's like Absolutely. Every day.
You have to remind yourself that anything that you aspire to do, and I'm not saying that somebody who isn't educated in like doing surgery should go and do surgery. I'm talking more about an arts perspective, but anything that you aspire to do in life, someone has done before, likely, and it's because they believed that they could. So that's the difference between you and the person achieving that. So you need to find it in yourself. And I mean, so often we've heard these statistics where men will go into like job interviews and ask for more money, or they will apply to jobs that they're not qualified for and then get them. And then women stand back and won't apply for a job that they feel like they're not qualified for. Well, we need to step into our power and do our best to believe in ourselves in those moments, because truly we're capable. I believe that I've accomplished way more than I ever imagined I could. And I promise you, I'm not some special. I just believed that I could at some point.
Absolutely. It's interesting too, because I mean, that's really accurate. I wonder the rates of imposter syndrome in men versus women, quite frankly, because I just feel like we've been taught to doubt ourselves from the very beginning. So it just feels very natural. But I feel like with men, sometimes it's almost the opposite.
Exactly. There's some strong statistics there, mostly about how men will apply for jobs that they're not qualified for, because you see things on a resume. And I hear this from my girlfriends too, like who are searching for jobs. They'll be like, okay, they're asking for like 6 years experience in this. And I'm like, you're fine. Just apply.
Yeah.
They would be so lucky to have you. But we see that in each other. It's hard to see it in yourself, right? And that's the big hurdle to, and just believe that if someone else has done it, you can too.
If you are listening to this podcast, you are probably a fan of inspirational quotes. And if that's the case, then you should check out my book. I feel that it's a cute little retro book with each chapter being a different emotion and then quotes that can help you with that emotion. So if you're looking to support me or the show, if you need a cute little gift for a friend or just something to flip through when you're feeling down one day, then this book is for you. You can purchase it at quotesbychristy.com, which is my website, or the link will be in the show notes. If this is too personal, we can skip over this question, but I know you just posted, and I'm so sorry to hear about your mother who passed away. And you've now dealt with cancer in 2 parents and gone through grief that I can't even imagine. Has there been a best piece of advice or something that someone has said that has really helped you to like heal and cope with these incredibly difficult situations that I know a lot of people have gone through?
Yeah. So my mom passed away. Sorry, it's very fresh. 2 weeks ago. I wish I could say I'm an expert in this and am like have all the wisdom. One thing that has really helped me through my grief journey so far is that somebody said to me, who had also recently lost their mom, and they said, most people lose their mom in their life, right? If you're a child, then at some point in your life, you're likely going to lose your mom. And they said, most people lose their mom, and you were lucky to have a great one. And I feel that deeply, that I was so fortunate to have just the most incredible mom in the world. So I lean on that, and that has gotten me through. Do I have any other wisdom? I mean, my mom was sick for 2 years, and we really made the most of each day. And there were some things that her oncologist said that were really helpful through the journey. So if you're someone who has an illness, a terminal illness, or you know somebody who has a terminal illness. When my mom was diagnosed with cancer 2 years ago, she was given a prognosis of 9 months, and she was terminal from the beginning. So we knew that at some point this cancer would kill her. And it's really, 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 really hard to wrap your head around when something like that happens. And the best piece of advice that her oncologist gave her was, and hopefully this doesn't come off as morbid, but he said, I could walk outside today, walk out onto the street and get hit by a bus. He said, just because you have this illness, you have no idea what is going to happen, and you cannot live dictated by an expiry date. We all have no idea what is going to happen in life, so make the most of each day. And it is so true. And as horrible as terminal cancer is, I think that it really does teach everybody who's around that person, as well as the person going through that illness, that you have an opportunity in this life to really make the most of each day and live it up. And that's what my mom did for the last 2 years. I mean, she was very fortunate to take treatment very well, and we just made the most of the time that we had. And I feel like I've had 20 years in 2 years with my mom. So it's the worst, not gonna lie, but we're getting through. I mean, I'm on this podcast, so that's something.
Hey, yes, I was like, I am shocked that you are up and ready, and like that in itself is a huge accomplishment. So, again, I'm so sorry. Do you feel like your experience with her and also watching her really seize every day has really changed your mindset moving forward in your life as well?
Yeah, it was funny at her service on Sunday. People shared so many memories about my mom, and she was really someone that had so much fun in life. Like, she just lived it up, and everybody who met my mom would just say, oh my God, like she was a hoot. And I think I've worked a lot in the last 7-8 decade really to make a career. And my mom's passing and hearing these stories was a reminder that to find joy in life, right? Like, so often we get in this hamster wheel where we're churning and working and losing sight of the fact that we're all going to perish one day, and you need to have some fun when you can. So that's the big thing is, I think, and I mean, she passed in the middle of my book launch, so that's difficult, but it seems so ridiculous now that I would even be worried about the book launch. Like, it's going to be fine. And, yeah, I need to focus on joy and making more happy experiences in my life, because that's really the way my mom led her life.
I love that. It is a terrible fact of life that I feel like the most tragic, horrific things generally are the ones that wake us up to probably some of the most beautiful parts of life that we wouldn't have been paying attention to otherwise. So
absolutely. It's actually, it's crazy because when my mom got diagnosed, my sister was working as a vet tech. That was her career. And I had just signed my book deal for Scrappy. And I was like, how the heck am I going to do this? I lived 20 minutes from my parents. So this was all, I was very involved in the whole diagnosis and going to appointments with my mom and whichever else. My sister actually left her job, and I hired her full time to help me with the book. And then she got pregnant. She wasn't thinking about having a baby yet, but she was like, oh my God. It just, when someone gets sick, you take stock of your life. And there were so many gifts that happened during this period. My mom was there for both my sister and I's wedding over the last 2 years. Then my sister had her baby, so she got to meet her baby. And then this book was also born really from us so much family time, and my sister stepping in and helping me out, because I had to be lifted off the floor at the beginning there. It was just, it was, in some ways, the diagnosis was more of a painful feeling than now the close of this, because I know she's at peace.
Yeah. I could definitely understand that. Are you someone who finds comfort when people say everything happens for a reason, or are you that sucks and I hate that explanation? I think there's two teams. Yeah.
I mean, it's not the best thing to hear when you're going through paralyzing grief and you're like, my mom's best friend had actually passed from melanoma 10 years earlier than my mom. And that really ripped any sense of like everything happens for a reason at that time, because it was so senseless and she was so young, and it was just like, what the heck? So I'm not a person that believes everything happens for a reason. And I think that it can be painful to hear from somebody who's grief stricken, but I will say that there are gifts from the pain. And I do think that all of us who have been deeply touched by my mom's passing are better people because of it. I know that before I didn't share about my mom's cancer journey over the last 2 years online, because I would just come on social media and it was just weird, right? Like I'd be throwing up a broccoli stem and saying like, stop throwing out your broccoli stem, and editing the video at like my mom's chemo appointment. Like there was just this two like worlds going on for me. Nobody knew what was going on. And that taught me something. And it was that you literally just have no idea what is going on in people's lives. Because I think people who would look at my Instagram profile over the last 2 years be like, wow, they might even be like, she's killing it. I want this kind of lifestyle. Meanwhile, I was like crumbling behind the scenes. And it's a potent reminder that in like the grocery store line, when somebody's frustrated or somebody's having a bad day in traffic or they're mean to a customer service person, whichever else, we don't know the battles that they're fighting. And my mom's passing and her journey has made me a much more compassionate person. And I can't speak to my sister and my dad, but I can imagine the same, because when you see somebody go through a journey like that and then put on a brave face, it certainly makes you wonder what other people have gone through.
I love that explanation that there are gifts through the trials. I kind of cringe at the everything happens for a reason. I think sometimes things just suck. And I think that if there is any order in the universe, that whoever you believe in, whatever power you believe is dictating this, also knows that sometimes things just suck. So
Absolutely. I think I've learned through this grief process that there's nothing anybody can say, right? There's really nothing you can say. And I just say to people, it's really shit. I don't know if you swear on this podcast, but it's just really shit. And there's no way around it. And I think if you're, I guess, witness or friends to somebody who's going through this grief, I would just say, be there for them and listen, but don't tell them everything happens for a reason. Because in their moment, in their time, it's just really shit.
Yeah. And you kind of, sometimes you just want someone to sit there in your pain with you. And that's like the best thing that they can do.
Exactly.
Well, so you're going through this book launch now with clearly a lot on your plate. Do you have any advice for other people who have all these dreams and goals, but also feel like life is just really overwhelming for them right now?
I think for me personally, when you're mission-based, and my mission is really like, I feel so passionate about helping people reduce their food waste and eat healthier, that this can be a very welcome distraction for me right now. And you should never feel guilty about working something that you feel passionately is going to help people. And that's getting me through right now. And that's okay. I know a lot of people are looking at me and saying, you're already going back to work. I'm like, thank goodness I have something that I'm so passionate about that I can talk about and feel good about. So I would just say, do what feels right for you, but also take the time that you need. But there's never a perfect scenario, right? I remember when my first book came out, there was like a COVID resurgence and I had to cancel all in-person obligations, and then it sucked. And I mean, this is a whole other level of suck, but you get through, and the book was still a success and people still got value from it. And at the end of the day, that's all that matters.
Yeah. I think it's so true that there is never a perfect moment. And I think a lot of us wait a really long time for it, just for it to never come.
Exactly. And there's never going to be a time like say I was launching my book in September. There could be another thing happening in my life that is making it challenging. So just gotta chug along. I say keep the train moving.
I love it. Okay, last but not least, we love to hear if people have favorite quotes on the show. It's kind of the shtick. So do you have a favorite quote, a favorite mantra, maybe a saying that you've just always loved, or maybe it just really resonates with you right now even?
My whole mantra right now is just keep on chugging, one foot in front of the other. And when you are in the toughest point of your life, one foot in front of the other, if you can do that and look and say, okay, I got to wake up. My mom passed 2 weeks ago and I got some podcast recordings to make this book a success. We're going to jump on one foot in front of the other, one at a time. And if that's all that can get you through at a given moment, I think you're doing okay. So that's my mantra right now in life.
I like it. You are like Dory from Finding Nemo. Just keep swimming. And honestly,
yes,
let's be honest, I think we all are. I think that the only way to get through life in a lot of cases, maybe you're at a point where you can see that whole staircase and it's great and everything's falling into place. But I feel similarly to you. Like when people are like, so like, what are your goals for the next couple of years? I'm like, just getting through the day. Getting through the day, doing my best, doing the next right thing, trying to be a decent human being, like staying alive, eating plants like you're doing. I mean, I think that maybe sometimes we're a little too harsh on ourselves in all scenarios, and especially when you go through something as life-shattering as you have. I mean, just getting up and breathing, like I said, is like major accomplishment.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And for anyone listening out there, like I can promise you, I don't have any 10-year, 5-year plans. I'm exactly like you, Christy, where it's like, I don't know. I got to get through the day today. Mm-hmm. Hopefully future me will make the right decisions there. And I think in time you find trust in yourself that you're going to, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Carleigh, before we go, give us a recap then. Your new cookbook is coming out in April, correct?
Yeah, so, April 2nd.
Right around the corner?
Yes, right around the corner. It's called PlantYou Scrappy Cooking. It has over 140 plant-based, low-waste recipes that allow you to utilize the food that you have in your fridge and pantry. A lot of the recipes are customizable, so you can switch out the vegetables or the produce items you have on hand. Really simple, really delicious, and you can get it anywhere books are sold.
Amazing. And then where can people go if they're not already following you to support your current work and what you're doing?
Any social media platform other than Snapchat. I haven't figured that out yet, but you can find me at PlantYou, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. And I also have a website, plantyou.com, with lots of free recipes.
Amazing. Carleigh, thank you so much for this beautiful and moving conversation and for taking the time to join us today and just for taking the energy more so as well.
Thank you so much. And I'll say sorry for the tears, but
no, never.
Okay. Thank you.
We are not in the business of apologizing for our tears here.
Thank you so much.
Of course. And to everyone listening and tuning in, thank you so much for joining us on the shift today. We hope that you got as much inspiration from this episode as we did. Don't forget to subscribe, and we will see you next time.